So this morning, I feel the need to talk about a lot of different subjects, but I've decided to roll them all up into one. Um, the written Torah versus the living by faith, circumcision of the flesh versus circumcision of the heart, where you will find both in the Torah, circumcision of the flesh and circumcision of the heart, and where you will find the greater law, the greater Torah, which are the two greatest commandments of them all, which are not written in the written Torah, which are not written on the tablets of stone. And a tragedy occurred. That's not the word that I'm looking for. An outrageous act of murder occurred while all these nations are trading money, bribes, kickbacks, whatever, for peace and security, peace and safety. And not a single time this travesty, this outrage has been mentioned by any of these so-called national leaders. So we're going to go ahead and get started with the first subject at hand here. 52-year-old mother of 6 brutally murdered while jogging in Samaria forest. Now, those of you who have been following my videos, you know that the Judea and Samaria subject has been a very sore subject for me. It is tied to the new covenant, which is for Israel. How many times have I gone over Jeremiah 30 and 31, talking about how the people of Israel will once again be safely dwelling and planting in Samaria? And as soon as there was a movement in Israel to do so, even though the talk was politically motivated, yes, I know that Benjamin Netanyahu did not have any intention on applying sovereignty to Judea and Samaria. And so people in the United States, in order to try to stop it, began working out all kinds of treacherous bribery, whether the bribery would be in forms of money or other assets. We've seen this happen with the United Arab Emirates being promised F-35s for, quote unquote, making peace with Israel. We have seen the United States of America concerning Morocco and promises of peace. There was promises of money, and there was also a promise of I believe it is the Western Sahara, that United States would recognize this piece of land in the Western Sahara as belonging to Morocco, when the vast majority of the African countries completely disagree and find the act outrageous, as You know that Morocco annexed that piece of land back in 1979. So every peace deal that is being worked out has bribery of some sort in it, has palm greasing, has favors being made, and there's another one. I think if you go to Jerusalem Post or one of those things today, you will find where the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia is being offered a pardon of sorts by President Donald Trump. You see, for for what happened to this dissident journalist, and I in no way am a supporter of that dissident journalist. He was a friend of Al Qaeda. All at the expense of Israel. All at the expense of Judea and Samaria having sovereignty being applied to. And now this happens. Now this happens. She should be able to jog in the Samaria forest without fear. But because Christian nations are bribing terrorist nations, this happens. Because Christian nations are telling the Israeli government, whoa, 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 don't apply sovereignty to Judea and Samaria. And if you do, we're going to withhold foreign aid. I pointed this out, I think it was back in March or April, that if Israel did not agree to this peace plan of the century, within a matter of, I believe it was 6 months, that foreign aid would be withdrawn from Israel, obviously leaving Israel alone, a target for all its enemies. I do not hear any outrage coming from the Trump administration, not even from his Jewish son-in-law, Jared Kushner. This woman is somebody's wife, or I should say, was somebody's wife. 6 children have lost their mother. A man has lost his wife. A woman has lost her life. Because the United States of America, the last bastion of the Roman Republic, has decided that Jeremiah 31 shall never happen. The United States of America has decided that, in its own arrogance, that the new covenant for Israel must never take place. Let's go to Jeremiah 31. And for those of you who are Jews and Hebrew speakers, please bear with me. I know his name is not pronounced Jeremiah, but I'm doing this for the English-speaking audience. Actually, I need to start in chapter 30. What does it start with? Even your own King James Bible points this out. Yes, folks, I am using, you Christians, I am using your own Bible against you. You even put the mark of the beast on this Bible, you do. But I'm using the King James Bible against you, but I'm going to use Strong's Concordance along with it, so the King James Bible will not be able to deceive me or you. The restoration of Israel and Yehudah. That means not just the Jews, folks. That means the other tribes of Israel who are lost, who were lost forever, who were declared in the prophet Hosea, not my people. The word that came to Yirmiah from Jehovah, saying, Jehovah speaks, Jehovah Elohim of Israel speaks, saying, write all these words that I have spoken unto you in a book. So Jeremiah did. For lo, the days come, saith Jehovah, that I will bring again. I will cause who to return? The captives of Israel and Yehudah, saith Jehovah. And I will cause them to return to the land that I gave to their fathers, and they shall possess it. What part do these Christian nations do not understand? But you say no. Every time there is a terrorist attack in Europe and Jews start saying we're going home, the French, the English, all these nations say, oh, no, we can't let you go home. Our economies would be devastated. They come up with all kinds of excuses. They put up all kinds of roadblocks. Imagine what's going to happen when all Israel and all of Yehudah are brought back to the Holy Land at once. What will these nations do then? And they shall possess it, because that I gave to the fathers, and they shall possess it. These are the words that Jehovah spoke concerning Israel and concerning Yehudah. For thus saith Jehovah, we have heard a voice of trembling and a fear, not of peace. Then why are they saying peace? Now, this time of Jacob's trouble, everyone gets it wrong. Because this is a summary of what happened from the destruction of Jerusalem from, was it 67 CE until now. It is a span of thousands of years. The time of Jacob's trouble is not a totality of 3.5 years. It is not the 3.5 years of Jerusalem's destruction, and that's it. No. The time of Jacob's trouble continued just like the time of Jacob's trouble that Jehovah told Abraham about in a dream that was going to last for 400 years. 4 generations, I believe it was, he said. 400 years it lasted. Back in those days, a generation was 100 years. So this time of Jacob's trouble lasted from the days of the Jewish rebellion against Rome, when Rome came in there and annihilated Jerusalem, until just recently. So we have heard a voice of trembling and a fear, not of peace. And ask now whether a man travails with child. Why do I see every man with his hands upon his loins, and as a woman in travail, and all the faces are turned into mildew, paleness? Alas, for that day is great, or that time is great, and it was. It was horrible. It is a time of Jacob's trouble, and it was. But he will be saved out of it, and he shall be. When? When the time of the Gentiles comes to an end, as is written in Luke 21, as is written in Romans 11, as is written in Daniel 9 and 12. For it shall come to pass, and that there will come a day, saith Jehovah of hosts, that I will break his yoke from off your neck. Whose yoke? The Romans. Today it's the Christians. They're one and the same. The Romans and the Christians are one and the same. Because a follower of Yehoshua would never call himself a Christian. And that's a fact. And will burst your bonds, and strangers shall no more serve themselves of him. But they, Israel and Yehudah, will serve Jehovah Elohim. Now it says, in David their king, whom I will raise up. In other scriptures it says, son of David. Therefore, fear not, my servant Jacob, saith Jehovah, neither be dismayed, O Israel, for lo, I will save you from afar, and your seed from the land of their captivity. And Jacob shall return, and he shall be in rest, and he shall be quiet, and none shall make him afraid. For I am with you, saith Jehovah, to save you. Yashah. Though I make complete and utter destruction upon the Goy, the Gentiles, where I have scattered you, and accomplish a full end of destruction, to discipline, to chasten, to admonish, in judgment, to be empty and clean. You see what King James Version did here? Did you see that? Did you notice it? They went and added things in there that didn't belong here. He said he is going to do to the Gentiles, to the Goy, he is going to shatter them into pieces. He's going to make a total, complete destruction, annihilation, and consumption of who? The Goy. And he continues. He doesn't say, yet I will not make a full end of you, but will correct. He doesn't say that. That's not what he's saying. He didn't say that at all. If you want context, read the above verses we just read. He says he's going to accomplish complete destruction. He's saying it over and over and over again. Now, if you want context for this particular verse, for verse 11, go to Isaiah 24 and you'll find it. He's going to make utter destruction of the Gentiles. There will be few men left among them. It will take 1,000 years for them to replenish their numbers. The destruction is going to be so great. I cannot. It is impossible for me to embellish how great this destruction upon the Gentiles is going to be. And you Gentiles don't know it. You don't see it coming. Says Jehovah. Yes. You're crushing the breach and sickness. A blow, a wound, a slaughter. Beseech. Judge. Judgment. A wound. Talal or Tehalal, I don't know what that means, but we can look that up. A watercourse. Remedy. We'll go back into English again. All your lovers have forgotten you. They don't seek you anymore. Smite. A blow of slaughter. Enemy. Discipline, chasten, correction, cruel. For the multitude of iniquity. Sin. To be vast, mighty, and numerous. You cried out in your affliction, your sorrow. You were weak because of the multitude of iniquity, because your sins were increased. Did he do these things to Israel? Therefore, all they had to devour you shall be devoured, and all your adversaries, every one of them, shall go into captivity. And they that spoil you shall be a spoil, and all the prey upon you will I give you for a prey. I will restore health unto you, and I will heal you of all your wounds. That's Jehovah. They called you an outcast, saying, Zion, whom no man seeks. This is what Jehovah says. Behold, I will bring again the captivity of Jacob's tent, and have mercy upon his dwelling places. But wait a minute. We have people who are saying, no, 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 you may not. You may not have Judea and Samaria. And when a woman gets stoned to death by a terrorist, they don't consider it. Let me rephrase that. When a Jewish woman gets stoned by a terrorist in Samaria, they don't consider it. And the city shall be built back upon her own heap. What heap? East Jerusalem. And the palace shall remain after the manner thereof. In other words, the palace is going to be in the city of David, East Jerusalem. And out of them shall proceed thanksgiving, and the voice of them that shall make merry, and I will multiply them, and they shall not be few. But as we read about the Gentiles, we read in Isaiah 24, few men left. So it's obvious that Isaiah 24 is referring to the Gentiles. I will also glorify them, and they shall not be small. They shall grow. Their children will be as aforetime. They will be like Esther. They will have at least 6 children at a time like she did. And their congregation shall be established before me, and I will punish all their oppressors. All of them. Now, look. The word in Hebrew is lawcuts. Those that squeeze them. Well, this peace plan of the century orchestrated by the Trump administration was a squeeze play, folks. Wait a minute. We're going to bribe all of your enemies to make a false peace with you. But do not apply sovereignty to Judea and Samaria. This is what's happened. That's oppression. That is the word lakats in Hebrew. It means to squeeze, to press, to oppress. That, what was just done with this peace plan of the century, is the definition of lakats. And they're nobles. Not the nobles. The royal line of David, the majesty, shall have dominion, and shall proceed, come out of the midst of them, and I will cause him to approach, and he will approach unto me. For who is this that engages his heart to approach unto me, saith Jehovah? Who else would it be besides the suffering servant? And you will be my people, and I will be your Elohim. Look at the whirlwind of Jehovah going forth with fury, continuing whirlwind. It shall fall with pain upon the head of the wicked. Isaiah 24. The fierce anger of Jehovah shall not return until he has done it, until he has performed the intents of his heart in the after part. After the time of the Gentiles has come to an end. The after part is in Deuteronomy 30. What happens before Deuteronomy 30? Blessings and cursings. In Deuteronomy 28. Blessings and cursings. But after the cursings comes what? Redemption. Oh, well, looky here. King James Version has done it again. Restoration promised. So Deuteronomy 30 and Jeremiah 30 is one, is the same thing. Moses foretold of it. Let us continue then. In Jeremiah 31, mourning turned to joy, and at that time saith Jehovah, I will be Elohim of all the clans of Israel, not just Yehuda, and they will be my people. Thus says Jehovah, the people which are left from the sword will find grace in the wilderness again. Yes, Israel, I will cause him to rest. No, I'm not going to be fooled by King James Version, folks. You see, folks, what I'm saying is, the words of the prophets must match with each other. Moses was a prophet. So if you read Deuteronomy 30 and you read Jeremiah 30 and 31, they must match. You see, Because it's the same thing. It's the same prophecy. Jehovah appeared in the old days or from afar with love, with an everlasting love, with favor. He's going to draw you back, Israel. I will build you again, O Virgin of Israel. You shall be adorned once again with Tophet, and shall go forth and dance and to laugh. You're going to plant vines on the mountains of Samaria. This, folks, is the new covenant chapter, as I have said over and over and over again. It is the same chapter that Paul quoted in Hebrews 8, verses 8 through 12. And the planters are going to plant in the mountains of Samaria, and they will be able to eat as if it was normal, back in the days of old when they were not being persecuted. There shall be a day that the watchman upon Mount Ephraim shall cry out and say, Arise and let us go up to Zion unto Jehovah Elohim. And this is in the context of, and back in those days, back in the old days when ancient Israel had parted from Judah, Yehuda, that they were divided. This is talking about that division is going to come to an end. That division between Ephraim and Yehuda is going to be healed. For thus saith Jehovah, sing with gladness for Jacob, and shout among the head of the Goy. Who is the head of the Goy? Rome, aka Western civilization. Publish, praise, and say, Jehovah, save your people, the remnant of Israel. Bring them from the north country, and gather them from the coastlands of the Eretz, and with them the blind, the lame, and the... What coastlands? The coastlands where they were scattered to was Egypt, Morocco, Rome, Greece, France, and the upper parts of the north, Spain, Portugal, and to the ends of the earth. And with them the blind and the lame. No, the blind and the lame are not going to be left behind. The woman with child, and her that travails with child, all together, united as one people. A great company shall return there. They shall come with weeping and with supplications. I will lead them and cause them to walk by the rivers of the waters in a straight way, where they shall not stumble. For I am Ab. And you Christians, you claim that Jesus was the creator. Unbelievable. He calls himself Ab, father to Israel and Ephraim. When Jacob sat Ephraim and Manasseh on his lap, Ephraim of the two was declared the firstborn. Hear the word of Jehovah, you Gentiles, and declare this to the coastlands, and say, He that scattered Israel is going to gather him and keep him as a shepherd does his flock. This is the new covenant chapter. Deuteronomy 30 is the new covenant chapter, folks. And the new covenant is for Israel, exactly as the title of this YouTube channel states. For Jehovah has redeemed Jacob and ransomed him from the hand that was stronger than he. Who was that? Rome. Western civilization. Therefore they will come and sing in the height of Zion and shall flow together for the goodness of Jehovah. For wheat and for wine and for oil and for the young of the flock and for the herd, and their soul shall be as a watered garden. They shall no longer sorrow anymore. Yes, he's going to wipe the tears from their eyes. And they will be no more weeping, no more sorrow, as you read in the book of Revelation. Then shall the maiden rejoice and dance. The young man and the old man will be dancing together. I will turn their mourning into joy and will comfort them and will make them rejoice from their sorrow, from their 2,000 years or whatever, how many it is, of sorrow that they had to suffer the time of Jacob's trouble. And I will saturate, fill up the soul of the Kohen with fatness, and my people will be satisfied with my goodness, saith Jehovah. Thus saith Jehovah. A voice was heard in Ramah. Lamentation and bitter weeping. Rachel, weeping for her children, refused to be comforted for her children because they were not. Says Jehovah, refrain your voice from weeping and your eyes from tears, for your work shall be rewarded, saith Jehovah, and they will come again from the land of the enemy. Now, as I have said many, many, many times before, how the United States of America, as well as other nations, but United States of America specifically, claim that they are friend to Israel, that Israel is an ally. Then, if that is true, what are all these Jews and lost Israelites doing here? It says right here, Jehovah says, refrain your voice from weeping and your eyes from tears, for your work shall be rewarded, saith Jehovah, and they shall come again from the land of the what? Oh, yea. I'm sorry for butchering Hebrew. I'm not very good at it. The enemy, the foe. So the Israelites, the Jews that are living in the United States of America, is the most of all the other nations. There are at least 10 million Jews living here in the United States. And if 10 million Jews are living here in the United States, then the vast majority of the people of Israel, please do not misunderstand what I'm saying here. I am not saying that the United States is Israel, as some false preachers have claimed. No, what I'm saying is that the vast majority of Israel is living in the United States, and according to the word of Jehovah, against his will. He calls this land the land of the enemy. Anywhere where there are Israelites living that is not in the Holy Land is the land of the enemy. And the government that is in the United States is not a friend of Israel. There is hope when? In the after part, at the end, when the time of the Gentiles' dominion over Israel is finished. It is spoken of in Deuteronomy 30, Daniel 7, Daniel 2, Daniel 9, Daniel 12, Isaiah 24, Isaiah 60, Isaiah 66, Ezekiel 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39. How many prophecies must I point to before people, well, as you can see, no matter what is said or done, the Gentiles are not going to believe. But Israel is going to believe when Israel is saved from their enemies. There is hope in your end, saith Jehovah, and your children shall come again to their own boundaries. What boundaries? Well, as I pointed to in a recent video, the video was, this is what happens when this is what happens when you mess with Israel. Okay, you can scroll down and look at my videos, and you can see which one it was. I pointed to a map of Israel that was promised in the Balfour Declaration as a land, homeland for the Jews, and how the Gentile nations, the United Nations, reneged on that promise. If Ephraim bemoans himself, he says, I was chastised as a bullock unaccustomed to the yoke. Return, for you are, or return, Jehovah Elohim. Surely after he returned, he repented. He was sorry. And then he was instructed. And he smote his thigh. And he was ashamed and confounded, because he bore the reproach of his youth. Ephraim, my dear son, my pleasant child, I spoke against him, but I earnestly remember him. Therefore my bowels are troubled for him. I will certainly have mercy upon him, says Jehovah. Set up the waymarks. Make your high heaps. Set your heart towards the highway, folks. Even the way in which you went, return again. Maiden of Israel, turn again, return to your cities. How long will you go about, O backsliding daughter, because Jehovah has created a new thing in the arets? Something that did not happen in the time of the Old Covenant. A woman, well, surround a man. And that would be diametrically opposite of the way marriage is in Western civilization. And quite frankly, the way it is in Eretz Israel today. That's going to change. A woman is going to defend her man, stand by her man, instead of using the system to take advantage of him. But anyway, that's a whole other subject. Thus saith Jehovah of hosts, the Elohim of Israel. Say this word in the land of Yehudah, in the cities thereof, when I will bring again their captivity. Jehovah bless you, O habitation of justice and mountain of holiness. Now, the mountain of holiness is what? Jerusalem. And they shall dwell in Judah itself, and all the cities thereof, together, the husbandmen to go out with the flocks, and they will be saturated. The faint soul will be replenished, filled to the fill. Every sorrowful soul will be filled to the full. Awake and see. Sleep will be sweet and pleasing. Behold, the days come, saith Jehovah, I will sow the house of Israel and the house of Yehudah with the seed of men and with the seed of beasts, and it shall come to pass that as I have watched over them, to pluck them up and break them down, and to throw down and destroy and to afflict them, So will I watch over them to build and to plant, saith Jehovah. In those days they shall no more say that the fathers have eaten the sour grape and the children's teeth are set on edge. Yes, I know you Christians, you want to claim, you claim that all of those atrocities that your forefathers committed against the Jews will not be held against you because of this particular verse. No, this verse does not apply to you Gentiles. No, it doesn't. It applies to the people of Israel. But everyone shall die for his own iniquity. Every man that eats a sour grape, his teeth shall be set on edge. Verse 31, behold, the days come, saith Jehovah, I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Yehudah, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day when I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt. That covenant is defeated. It's defeated. It's ruined forever. Even though I was a husband unto them, saith Jehovah. But this shall be the covenant. So what is he going to do for Israel? We just read in great detail, but he goes further. He adds one more point to this covenant that makes it different. Actually, makes a couple of points that he makes it different than the old covenant. The old covenant was, if you do these things, if you do this, if you do this. Well, this is going to be different. This shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, saith Jehovah. After what days? After the time of the Gentiles' domination of Israel has ended. When Jehovah cuts the Gentiles off. I will put my Torah in their inward parts and write it in their hearts, and I will be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. And they shall teach no more every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, Know Jehovah, for they shall all know me, from the least of them unto the greatest of them. And for those of you who are living in the Holy Land today, and you see sin upon sin, just as it used to be, do not despair. Please do not despair, because that's going to change. Not for Israel's sake, not for the Jews or the house of Israel's sake, no, for Jehovah's holy name's sake. He has a reputation to uphold here. The promises made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob have to be carried out, and he's going to do it, and it's going to be a miracle. Says Jehovah, for I will forgive their iniquity and remember their sin no more. How is this going to be? He's going to put his Torah in the inward parts and write it in their hearts. So now we go and look at, I want to look at Deuteronomy 10. So this is the new tablets of stone, and Jehovah had Moses, Moshe, make him 2 new tablets of stone, and he wrote on them. But what did he write on them? The 10 Commandments. What were the 10 Commandments? 10 Commandments were this, right? You shall have no other Elohim before me. You shall not make unto you any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in the heaven above or in the earth beneath or that is in the water under the eretz. You shall not bow down yourself to them nor serve them, for Jehovah Elohim is a jealous Elohim, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the 3rd and 4th generation of them that hate me. and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. You shall not take the name of Jehovah Elohim in vain, for Jehovah will not hold them guiltless that takes his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shall you labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of Jehovah to Elohim. It is not Sunday. And in it you shall do no work, neither your son, nor your daughter, nor your manservant, nor your maidservant, nor your cattle, nor the stranger that is within your gates. It doesn't say outside the gates, it says within your gates. For in 6 days Jehovah made heaven and earth and the sea and all that were in them, was rested on the seventh day, wherefore Jehovah blessed the Sabbath and made it holy. Honor your father and your mother, that the days may be long upon the land which Jehovah Elohim gives you. As I have pointed out, that the Sabbath is associated with the promised land of Israel. He did not give this Torah to the Gentiles. He gave it to Israel only. You shall not kill, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. You shall not covet anything of your neighbor. Now, these 10 commandments are like the circumcision of the flesh. The Pharisees and the leaders of Israel in the days of Yehoshua used the Sabbath day against the people, used it as a weapon. And so Yehoshua took that weapon away from him. He didn't take the Sabbath away from him. No, he did not. He de-weaponized the Sabbath so that accusations against your neighbor concerning the Sabbath on these small little details could not be validated. And you can go read in the books and you will see where he healed on the Sabbath day, where when his disciples had plucked grain and ate while they were walking, and pointed out that if that was wrong, then all the priests are in violation of the Sabbath because of the, you can read it for yourself, for the priestly duties that they do on the Sabbath day. You see. So he took that as he took that away from them as a weapon. He did not take the Sabbath away. He took the weaponizing of the Sabbath away from them. Okay? But there are 2 commandments that are far greater than these 10 commandments that are missing here. Can you find it in the words of Moses? Yes, you can. Deuteronomy. Now they're bearing the ark of the covenant of Jehovah, and they stood before Jehovah to minister unto him and bless his name. Wherefore Levi has no part, or Levi has no part in inheritance with his brethren, that Jehovah is his inheritance according to Jehovah has promised him. I stayed on the mount according for the first time 40 days and 40 nights, and Jehovah listened to me. And at that time also Jehovah would not destroy you. And Jehovah said unto me, arise and take your journey before the people, that they may go and possess the land which I swore to their fathers to give to them. And now Israel, what does Jehovah Elohim require of you? But to fear Jehovah Elohim, to walk in all his ways, and to love him, and to serve Jehovah Elohim with all of your heart and all of your soul. The greatest commandment of them all. When the Pharisees, when the chief priests fined and humiliated the people of Israel, or the people of Judah in those days, for tiny infractions on the Sabbath, that was not loving Jehovah Elohim. When they accused Yehoshua of working on the Sabbath when he healed the people of Israel, that was not loving Jehovah Elohim. In fact, it was a violation of love Jehovah Elohim. How? Because he made man in his image. And what you do to your brother, you have done unto him. This law supersedes. It is greater than all the others that come after it. However, if you make a graven image unto yourself and you bow down and worship it, you are in violation of the greatest law. To fear Jehovah, to walk in his ways, and to love him and serve Jehovah with all of your heart, with all of your soul. If you take his name in vain, you are in violation of the great law. That very law that I just read. And he says right here, circumcise therefore the foreskin of your heart and be no more stiff-necked. So this, to love Jehovah with all of your heart and with all of your soul, is the circumcision of the heart. Now, he continues, for Jehovah your Elohim is greater than all the Elohim, and the Master of masters, a great Elohim, a mighty and terrible, which regards not persons, who takes reward. We just saw, folks. We just saw how the government of the United States of America has bribed the enemies of Israel to make a false peace with them. But he does not regard those transactions. Those transactions are meaningless to him, mean nothing. He executes the judgment of the fatherless and the widow. And you can include the motherless and the widower. While the nations pay no attention to what happened to Esther Horgan. Somebody will. He executes judgments for the fatherless and the widow, and he loves the stranger, and he will give them food and clothing. Love you therefore the stranger, for you are strangers in the land of Egypt. Now, let's go back to then Deuteronomy 30. It says, it shall come to pass, when all of these things are come upon you, the blessing and the curse, which I have set before you. I'm going to go ahead and do it Strong's Concordance, because King James Version has perverted this, and we're not going to allow the word of Jehovah to be perverted. The blessing and the curse as we just saw in Deuteronomy 28, which I have set before you, and you shall return in your inner heart while you're among the Gentiles, where Jehovah Elohim has driven you. Your heart is going to say, I want to come home. I want to go back. I want to go home. While you're living in that land. See, this is happening to me. Though I have only a fraction of Jewish blood, DNA in my blood, it's still there. And shall return unto Jehovah Elohim, and you will obey his voice. It doesn't say if you will obey his voice this time. No. You see, the old covenant says if you will. The new covenant for Israel says you will. According to all I command you this day, you and your children with all of your heart, you're going to. And with all of your soul. What is this? This is the circumcision of the heart. You see, we just read in Deuteronomy 10, he tells them to circumcise their heart. Well, they couldn't. They were unable to. So he's going to do the circumcision of the heart. Jehovah will cause your captivity to return and have compassion upon you, and will cause you to return and gather you from the who? From the Gentiles, where Jehovah your Elohim scattered you. And if any of you be driven out into the outmost parts of the horizon. Now, you know, I like this because it says heaven and sky, and indeed that's what it means. Because you see, folks, many of Israel after the Holocaust got on planes, the ones who were left, and flew to the United States. Took to the skies and flew to the United States, some even to South America, as far away as they could. He says, from there will Jehovah your Elohim gather you, and from there will he fetch you. And Jehovah Elohim will bring you into the land which your fathers possessed, and you shall possess it. He will do you good and multiply you above your fathers. And what is he going to do? Circumcise your heart. He's going to, instead of what we read in, was it Exodus 20? No, it was Exodus 10. I got rid of that. Or was it Deuteronomy 10? Well, I don't want to mess things up here. I'm going to continue in this path. Instead of telling them to circumcise their heart, he's going to circumcise their heart and the heart of your seed, to love Jehovah Elohim with all of your heart, with all of your soul, that you may live. So you see, folks, the 10 Commandments was not enough. That which was written on tablets of stone was not enough. The greater commandment. When he circumcises the heart, you will then love Jehovah Elohim with all of your heart and with all of your soul. You will. It takes a miracle. It takes the pouring out of the Holy Spirit, the Rosh Kodesh, upon you to do this. And not just a little down payment, as I've heard some preachers say. No, it's going to be poured out like water. And Jehovah Elohim is going to do what? You see, I could have stopped right there. No, I'm not going to do that. No. Because Jehovah is full of vengeance. And he will repay. And I will put all of these curses upon your enemies, on them that hated you. which persecuted you. Those who called you, Jews, the synagogue of Satan. That's right. He's going to put that curse that's written in Deuteronomy 28 upon your enemies. Those who forced you to wear this in their streets. Those who threw you, your forefathers, into ovens. Those who hung you on the stake. Those who drowned you. Those who burned your synagogues down. And those who raised up the graven image of Zeus as Jesus in all of their houses of worship. Those who put graven images of the Jews suckling upon a sow, and in the same graven image they put an image of a rabbi fornicating with the sow, and it's still in many houses of worship in Germany today. Those are the enemies of Israel, and the people who refuse to allow Israel to go back to their homeland, who refuse to allow people like Esther Horgan to go jogging in Samaria in peace. They are the enemy that's going to receive these curses. And you cannot hide behind Jesus. You cannot hide behind your false religion of Christianity. The curses are coming. And Israel will return and obey the voice of Jehovah. It's not going to be if they do it anymore. And do all his commandments which I command this day, and Jehovah Elohim will make you plenteous in every work of your hand, and the fruit of your body, and the fruit of the cattle, and the fruit of the land for good. For Jehovah will again rejoice over you for good, as he rejoiced over your fathers. It is not if you will. We just read. They will hearken unto the voice of Jehovah Elohim to keep his commandments and his statutes which are written in this Torah. Why? Because it is written in Joel and Joel. So to my friends who live in Israel today who are listening, here we go again. Look, restoration for promised. See, this is what I do. This is what I live for. These scriptures where it says restoration promised, even in King James Version. Then Jehovah will be jealous for his land and pity his people. Yes, Jehovah will answer and say to his people, behold, I will send you corn, wine, and oil, and you will be satisfied therewith. Have we not heard this over and over again this morning? And will make you no more a reproach among the heathen, among the Goy. I will remove far away from you the northern army, and will drive him into a land that is barren and desolate, with his face toward the sea, and the hinder sea toward the utmost sea, and his stink shall come up, and his ill savor shall come up, because he accomplished greatness. Ezekiel 38 and 39, anybody? Huh? Fear not, Eretz, be glad and rejoice, for Jehovah will do great things in retaliation. Be not afraid, ye beasts of the field, for the pastures of the wilderness will spring up, and the tree will bear her fruit, and the fig tree and the vine will yield their strength. Be glad then, you children of Zion, and rejoice in Jehovah Elohim, for he will give you the former rain moderately, and he will cause to come down for you the rain, the former rain and the latter rain in the first month. and the floor shall be full of wheat, and the fat shall overflow with wine and oil. And I will make amends for the years that the locust has eaten, that the cankerworm, the caterpillar, and the palmer worm, the great army which was sent to you. Now that's figuratively and literally, folks. That great army was also Rome in 67 CE. And you shall eat in plenty, and we will be satisfied, and you will praise the Shem of Jehovah Elohim. And this is what I do when I do these videos. That's why I proclaim his name loudly. He will deal wondrously with you, and the people will never be ashamed ever again. And you will know in the midst of Israel that Jehovah Elohim is there. And my people shall never be ashamed. And it shall come to pass in the after part. You see that? See that? How many times must we read this before people will start comprehending it? This is for Israel, that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh. So that's to Israel. We just read in the after part. In the after part, Israel's enemies are going to be cursed, and that Israel is going to be blessed. We just read that in the words of Moses, in the words of Jeremiah. Did we not? Yes, we did. So this is specifically concerning Israel in the after part. That I will pour out my spirit upon all their flesh. Every one of them, from the least to the greatest of Israel. And your sons and your daughters shall prophesy. And your old men will dream dreams, and your young men shall see visions. And also upon the servants and the handmaids. In those days will I pour out my spirit. He's going to give it to all of them. All of Israel, near and far. And I will show wonders in the sky and in the earth, blood, fire, and pillars of smoke. And the sun will be turned into darkness, and the moon into blood, before the great and terrible day of Jehovah come. And it shall come to pass that whosoever will proclaim the Shem of Jehovah shall be delivered, shall slip away. Where? To heaven? Will be raptured to heaven. Right? Wrong. In Mount Zion in Jerusalem is where deliverance is going to be. Just as Jehovah has said, and in the remnant, the last generation, when he calls them back to return. Yeah, I think I've covered what I wanted to cover today. I was very angry when I saw what happened to Esther Horgan. You see, like her husband, I lost my wife too. In fact, my own son doesn't even remember his mother. So yeah, it hit me hard. So this is why I did this video today. The promise for Israel is guaranteed. Judea and Samaria will go back. Will be in the borders of Israel once again, whether the nations, the Gentiles, like it or not. Israel will become great and the Gentiles will become small. Now, I want to go to one more scripture before I sign off, and this would be in Isaiah 14. To the Gentiles who are like Esther and who are like Rahab and Ruth. Isaiah 14. For Jehovah will have mercy on Jacob and will choose Israel and set them back in their own land, and the strangers shall be joined unto him. We just read about how his heart is with the strangers. What strangers? The enemies? The ones who stoned Esther? No! These strangers. The strangers that will join themselves and cleave to the house of Jacob. Those strangers who recognize what Paul said in Romans 11, that in order to be saved, a Gentile must be grafted in among the branches of Israel. This is what it's talking about. This is what Paul was talking about here. They will cleave to the house of Jacob. They will say, like Ruth said to Naomi, your people are my people. Your Elohim is my Elohim. Wherever you go, I will go. And wherever you are buried, I will be buried. She left her own family and her own beloved sister to be with Naomi, to be among the holy people. That is how you are grafted in among the branches, as is written in Romans 11. That's how it's done. But you Romans, you Christians, you did not. You would not be grafted in. No. You were like Esau. And for the Jews to point out Western civilization as being like Esau, they are correct. Because Esau hated his brother and tried to kill him. They are also like Cain, who actually did murder his brother. Both Esau and Cain were rejected. And so shall these people who call themselves Christians, who carry the cross like their forefathers did, thinking that they have the right to persecute, to kill, to steal, to divide the land of Israel in the name of their false god. That's coming to an end. And when it does, it will be a magnificent end. It will be so astounding that yes, when Jehovah pours out his Holy Spirit upon all Israel, they will all believe, just as it states in Ezekiel 39.